Now, get ready to talk hockey. Streaming from the Oilers Live Studio. Subscribe or follow today.
Hey, it's Michael here again for another Oilers Live Tuesday. I've got as my guest tonight Mr. Joe Cappucci. He is an employee or works with the Bridgeport Islanders. He also is a regular contributor to the Charging Buffalo. And he's going to be talking with me a little Buffalo Sabres tonight. I've got a little bit of a soft spot for the Buffalo Sabres, and so happy to have him on. They are the reason we've got Joe on, though, of course, is the Oilers embark on this road trip. Tough loss tonight versus the Red Wings, but we've got Buffalo in a couple nights. Boston next, I guess, and then Buffalo. I think that's how it works. Anyway, it's been a long night. Joe, welcome to the show.
Hey, Mike, I appreciate it, man. Thanks for having me on. Looking forward to it. Got to catch a little of the Oilers tonight, but looking forward to talking about some Sabres here the rest of the night here.
Yeah, I appreciate you coming on. So you watched the game tonight, obviously. It was a tough match. This has been the story 2 games in a row, though, for Edmonton, unfortunately, where they come out a little bit flat. And then, coming from behind. The nice thing for Oilers fans this year, of course, is the capabilities there, right? Like, I don't think there was anybody watching, including all of the Red Wings players on the bench, that didn't think that this was going to go into overtime at some point. And there are a lot of close, like that one puck just sort of slid past the crease there was it pretty much an empty net with about a minute left?
I was gonna say, man. I mean, Nedeljkovic came up with some huge saves in the third, and then when you have McDavid on the roster, you're never out of the game. So it was tight tonight, but we'll see what happens moving forward here.
Yeah, curious. What did you think of Skinner? That's the first time we've seen him this year. He's only played a couple. I thought he played a pretty decent game. I want to talk some Buffalo Sabres, but you're an outsider looking in, and so you saw a new goalie tonight. And thoughts?
Yeah, man. No, listen. Skinner definitely played a good game too. The goaltending on both ends. I already mentioned Nedeljkovic, but Skinner as well had some big saves. He kind of kept the team in the game. He made a big save on Raymond. I believe it was late in the second period. So he kept the Oilers hanging around, and obviously, as I said, with McDavid out there, you put up the goal in the third, and you're never out of it with him. They just they couldn't get it done tonight, but
yeah. So okay. We're going to talk some Buffalo Sabres. As I said, I've got a bit of a soft spot for the Sabres. I've actually anytime they go the Alberta route, I have typically gone to both the Calgary game and the Edmonton game. And when they're in Calgary, I actually don a Sabres jersey because they become my second favorite team.
Who do you got on the back of that, Mike?
Well, yeah, you know what? I borrow the jersey.
Okay.
But
okay.
I've been a big fan. There's the jersey behind you, Darlene. I'm a big fan of his.
Yeah.
I think he's a guy you need to watch live to fully appreciate. He just does some things that are, in my mind, surreal. Like he's just a brilliant player, and he's only going to get better. In my mind, yeah. He's had a tough go so far.
Yeah, to that point, if you want to talk about Darlene for a little bit right now, I love the kid, and I do think that he's had his struggles this year on the defensive end. Like you can tell, his defensive reads could be off sometimes, but he's got that skill on the offensive end of the puck. You see him making plays. It's almost nightly now where he's, dragging the defender, whatnot. So, he's a young kid. I think, honestly, I think Granato has helped him a little bit with the new coach and being able to kind of settle down and not have that pressure in the back of your mind. Like, okay, I got to be perfect here. And it's helped him to an extent this year. But to your point, you're right. He's still a young kid. He's going to improve here over time. Listen, man, I love Darlene, with the jersey in the back, you can see it. but you gotta obviously acknowledge when a player also kind of has some deficiencies, and right now he's got some stuff to clean up. But that offensive side upside is always going to be there with him. He's always going to be able to contribute.
It's interesting, and I think the soft spot for the Sabres is, as Oilers fans know, we've had our fair share of droughts. In fact, I mean, if anything, while we probably should be rivals because we're constantly going after that lottery pick year over year, it seemed.
Yeah.
And most Sabres fans have a little bit of a hatred for the Oilers and taking McDavid. In fact, I knew a couple that had Sabres McDavid jerseys already done up.
I was almost one of them, Mike. I was almost one of them.
Yeah.
My mom talked some sense into me. She was like, "Oh,
that's good." Yeah.
Yeah.
Man, best day of our lives in Edmonton, and potentially the worst for a lot of. But you got a good player who ended up going away. I want to start. Obviously, he's the news of the day in Buffalo right now. Well, more or less. I mean, it's probably died down a little bit as of late, but it's hard for that kind of news to die down. I mean, it's a guy. It's unfortunate what happened in terms of the surgery, et cetera. I mean, it's delayed. If you're a hockey fan, it's delayed this guy getting back on the ice sooner, whether you're a Sabres fan or you're, an Eichel fan or whatever. But, you want to see the best of the best playing in the league at all times. So that's too bad that he's not there. I'm curious. I mean, the Sabres are off to a semi-decent start. I think they're playing some of their, better hockey. Is this a coaching thing? Is there anything in there that's Eichel related? Like, I mean, you got to ask the question, right? I mean, he's gone, and the team's obviously there's a lot of changes there. So I'm not going to suggest it's him, but look, he's been there for now. What is it? 4 seasons he was there.
This was his 6th year, man.
6th year, jeez.
Yeah, right.
and the team just hasn't. They've shown fits of brilliance, and there have been times where he's played really well, and the rest of the team hasn't. Where he seemed to be carrying the team, but I mean, there people will always ask, right? Like if you couldn't get it done, he couldn't get it done, and they tried to invest some money in some players there, right? Like to get him going, and they just didn't work out.
They did, that Skinner contract for one. I mean, I'm talking about investing money. I mean, $9 million. And Skinner, I like Skinner. I've always been a believer in Skinner. I do think that Kruger misused him a little bit last season. And if you go back to Eichel last year, too, I mean, there was talks about Eichel having that rib injury before getting the neck injury. And it kind of made him, he had some great defensive numbers, but on the offensive side of the puck, he wasn't really producing as much. I want to say he had 18 points in 21 games. But obviously, that rib, I think, might have pulled him back a little bit. But yeah, they've invested, and it just kind of hasn't worked out. And I mean, it was time, to move on, obviously, with the disagreement on the surgery. And, there was talk that he had actually requested a trade even before the year, before last season when we signed Taylor Hall. But it was time.
Yeah, it surprised me because he seemed committed to the city, for so long. He, of course, it was known he bought a house there. He was, he signed the long term, and you never, what? I don't like to see a player of his caliber switch jerseys. I love to see a guy like that, stay where he is and build something around him, but it just didn't seem meant to be, and it was a big surprise when it came out that he was looking to be traded, and puts the team in a really hard situation. But I think what's your thoughts on the return? I mean, I thought if anything, the Sabres came out all right in that.
Yeah, I mean that's a good question. I mean, listen, like here with the Sabres, the fan base, we've been waiting for this since. You want to say some March, some May, obviously, most of us since the summertime. But I do think I think the return was all right. I think it was good. I mean, I've listened to a lot of different analysis, whether that would be from Friedman, Merrick, even, on my own with the Charging Buffalo, Joe Marino. He's on the Cautiously Optimistic podcast, and he kind of put it in a really good way. He said Kevin Adams, our GM, he stayed afloat on this trade. He had boat anchors tied to his ankles, the Eichel wanting out, the injury situation. He had boat anchors tied to his ankles, but he stayed afloat. He got a prospect like Krebs. who Krebs obviously went 17th overall in his draft year, but, had that Achilles injury, could have been pushing for that top 10 spot. I mean, he was, I watched a little bit of him in the WHL last season, arguably probably one of the best players there in that league, if not the best. And then you got Tuck is a good, a good winger. He can play up and down the lineup. That's been said.
Hometown boy.
And the last thing is, he wants to be in Buffalo. I mean, in his press conference, he rattles off the 06-07 roster. And, if that doesn't go to show that he's happy to be there, it's, nothing else will. So I like the return, and I'm happy what Adams did in the situation, that he was in.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think that the Tuck thing to me is actually a good news story. I like that. Like, I love when you got a guy that, of course, we Oilers fans have had some hometown boys come to town and get unceremoniously booted out. And sometimes it's like there's so much expectation for somebody in their own region that if they don't perform to expectation, and this is a tough situation for Tuck and for Krebs, and you're coming in and again, I mean, so many consistencies between the Oilers, and like we had Taylor Hall, right? And they it was a situation that the Oilers put themselves in, and everybody knew they were going to trade Taylor Hall. And but I think the crazy thing there was they put these artificial boat anchors, if you want to call it, on themselves. But very same thing. I don't think they got the return they wanted. I thought Buffalo, given that they everybody knew they had to trade him. They got something in return. And Krebs, so I've actually skated on the ice with him back in Calgary just after his Achilles, and he wasn't going full out. But let me tell you, he's a hell of a player, and you guys are going to be lucky to have him. I mean, that's at one point early on there was talk that he could make a run for the Calder, but he just didn't seem to be able to put the puck in the net or whatever. And sometimes it takes time. Darlene's a prime example, right?
Yeah.
So talk to me. Talk to me about the rest of the lineup, because you've got Tokarski, who seemingly is he's kind of playing a little bit bigger than what's been expected of him. I suspect, right? But you've got two guys in Tokarski and Dell. I mean, what are you going to ask for there, right?
Yeah, I mean, listen, man. I mean, I feel like goaltending was a question mark really right up until preseason hit, and I mean, they signed Anderson so late into the off season, pretty much convincing him to come out of retirement here, and then Anderson obviously getting the injury, and now we have Tokarski and Dallas, the two that'll be rolled out on Friday night. I believe that is when we square off. But yeah, Tokarski he's been all right this year. You're right, he's been playing a little bit above. I think him and Anderson are, right around a 915, 920 save percentage. So they've been good. But, the Sabres, I was looking into it actually, and we have been giving up a lot of high danger chances. I mean, for most of our games, I think we've been out high danger chance in all but 4 games. And that's out of the 12, maybe 5 games. So, they are playing a little bit above expected, than what you would get from Arundel and Dustin Tokarski. But it's a good opportunity for Tokarski. Tokarski's been not really in the NHL much over the past few years, and he's getting the opportunity to come in and play for a team now, what it seems to be, fairly frequently, even with Anderson being healthy, he'll still get his starts. But yeah, I mean, goaltending was obviously the question mark. We really were hoping that Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen, not necessarily myself, was really hoping that he would play much this year, but more so show something more than he has in Rochester. Yeah, I don't know if you've been able to follow him down there, but he hasn't had the best start to the season. And honestly, I mean, I think it's taken a lot of fans to start looking at some of the other goaltending prospects. So, when you want to talk goaltending for Buffalo, Tokarski, Anderson, they're here this year, but looking towards the future, they're not in the plans. So, so that's kind of where we stand on that.
Yeah. Yeah, look, I mean, it seems like there are so many similarities between the two franchises, goaltending
Yes.
being
Yeah.
such a
Yeah.
hot topic. Of course, you know what I mean. There's any team that doesn't have a bona fide starter is going to be talking the same story, right? You're either
Right.
hoping for some prospect to do something like you're hoping for Skinner tonight. It's too bad from a goaltender's confidence tonight watching that Skinner that third goal, right,
Yeah.
which ends up
Yeah.
being the game winner.
Yeah.
That's tough, and
Yeah.
I mean, and he played. I think he played a pretty decent game. Uh, Tell me about one of the things I like to ask, yes, as we're going into a game. I mean, there's always the obvious players, but who would you say to zero in on for the Sabres as we're watching the game on Friday night?
So I mean, Tage Thompson has been a little bit of a bright spot this year. I mean, he's moved to center. Tage played that at UConn, where he played his college hockey before coming into the NHL. Obviously, he was a late first round pick. I think that was mid to late 20s by St. Louis, and then came over in the O'Reilly trade. But he's been solid this year at center. I mean, he looks like he has some more confidence with the puck. He's got a wicked shot, honestly, man. But like it, sometimes he doesn't use it in the right ways. Whether he's shooting that right into defenders' pads or it's just too inaccurate and he's not hitting the net. But when he gets a hold of one, it could go in the back of the net. And so him especially just having, I said this earlier about Dahlin, but with Granato as coach, you can see Dahlin has had a little bit more confidence to try some different things out, especially in the offensive zone. And that goes for Tage too. I mean, you see Tage trying to make some moves around defenders more often now. He's a little bit more active, even when he's not on the puck, which I think is good for him. I think when he was on the wing, he wasn't able to be as active as he could be when he was, now that he's a center. So to be honest, I think he's probably one of the guys to watch. I know a lot of people, around the Sabres fan base, they've been high on Asplund, and I like Asplund. I mean, he's right now our leading scorer. Obviously, with Olofsson being hurt, Olofsson, I think, he had 9 points in 8 games, but Olofsson now 10 and 11. So Olofsson's been solid. But those two, especially, they're going to be on the first line. And that line's played pretty well, especially, when you're talking about how they're getting the tough matchups every night.
Yeah.
Tage Thompson has been pretty solid this year. And, it'll be exciting to see what he can do against that Oilers top six, because, I mean, man, that Oilers top six is, that's dynamite. So.
Yeah, you saw it again tonight, right? Like they might not have put up the points tonight, but they were there. Like they made some. It's fun to watch, right? Whether you're an Oilers fan or not, it's fun to watch.
Right.
Like I look up and down this lineup though of Sabres players, and there's nobody that really like sticks out, right? I mean, there's obviously, Dahlin, lots made of him going first overall, but he hasn't quite proven himself yet. I mean, this is really, a by committee type of lineup, right? And like what's changed though, right? I mean, you came out of the gates flying.
Yeah.
Is it all injury related, do you think, or like which team is the real Buffalo Sabres? Is it the sort of last five, or is it the first five?
I hear you, man. And that's a good question. And, actually, I was listening to the Jeff Merrick show earlier today, and, he was saying we're right around the 10-game mark for every team. And that's where you kind of start to see, well, was it just a hot start for a player, or is this the norm? And so I think something similar could be said for the Sabres. I think, if I'm not mistaken, they've had an even split of home and road games here through the first 12. So at home, they've been pretty dominant. I mean, they've been 4-1-1. On the road, not so much. They've been 1-4-1. And you look at the opponents that they've played, like they beat Tampa at home, yeah. But, then they were playing Arizona, they were playing Montreal. But then on the road, they didn't play anybody too significant either. I mean, they played New Jersey, they played Anaheim, LA, some lower teams. LA, obviously, they look pretty solid this year.
Yeah.
But I think what it comes down to, and this has been talked about a little bit, is controlling the matchups for Granato. I think that he has shown an improvement this year as opposed to what Kruger was last year, in not only letting the players play a little bit more, obviously, and whatnot, but also controlling the matchups at home. So, obviously you get that first line change and everything. And he's able to kind of mash those guys up. So when you're talking about a lineup by committee, and you're looking at guys, like Cody Eakin or Gergensons or Oposo, you got to find the right matchups for those guys. And those guys have seen more success at home than they have on the road. And I think it's contributed to them finding more success there. So it'll be interesting to see how it plays out moving forward over maybe the next 10 games. But with it being evenly split, with them playing 6 home, 6 on the road so far, I think that's more what you can attribute it to. So we'll see.
Yeah. The downside is like this is a pretty tough little stretch of games for them. They got, they played Washington, which, is top team in the league. Of course, they're going to play Edmonton, who is, has had success against Buffalo in Buffalo, right? And then back to back with Toronto right up there, and Toronto's kind of going hot right now. As much as I hate to say that, and I think Pittsburgh's probably kind of be their easiest bet. Calgary also next week. So while they don't have a tough schedule, not a lot of games. Geez, they go into the end of the month like 5 games in 7 nights.
Right. We love that as fans, but the boys,
man,
not as much.
Yeah. That's gonna be a tough. Like their hardest part, like the hardest teams they play are early this month, and they get space in between them, but they're still tough teams. And then when they've got a little bit of an easier schedule, they're playing back to backs. And crazy timing. That's What's your thought? So if you had to guess, I mean, is this a team destined for playoffs this year?
Yeah, I mean, listen, man, I can't sit here and say yes. No, I obviously I don't see it. We had that hot start, and I mean, obviously as fans, we loved it. We enjoyed seeing some wins, seeing us above 500, but. I mean, I don't really think there were many Sabres fans out there who were sitting there and saying, okay, this is a playoff team after those first 5-6 games where we were sitting, 3-0 to start out and, 4-1 then. Now, I will say that before the season, I was talking with some people and I was expecting the Sabres to finish bottom 2 in the league. After watching the first 12 games, I'm not too sure about that. I think it could be more of, the Sabres have picked, 7th or 8th in the draft a handful of times, when they took Nylander and Middlestat and players like that. And I could see them finishing around that spot again, maybe a little bit lower, 5th. But they look like they care. They're going out. They're playing hard every night. And last season, I think there were really points where, we were sitting there, we were watching the games when you could just say these players, they quit. They quit tonight. They weren't playing hard, whether they quit on Kruger, the coach, whatnot. But Granato has a fire under these players and, they want to be good and they want to win games. I don't think they're going to make playoffs, but, you're going to get their best effort every night.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's good, and I think that's kind of an improvement over last season. I kind of feel like Kruger there's a lot of talk about him and his capabilities around motivating players and I just, obviously he didn't last very long in Edmonton. He didn't last very long in Buffalo.
Yeah.
He's clearly he's now back to back on the same type of team and if he's going to take another job in the NHL, which I doubt he'll get one, but if he's going to, my advice to him would be to go after a team that's got a little bit more going for them. Going in. I mean, it's he's good at talking in interviews because he's got he's been in a tough boat though. I mean, you can't. What more can you ask of
You're
that
right.
team?
You're right.
And then of course I go with the injury and that. All right, what's your thought going into Friday? Edmonton or Buffalo? I mean, you can be a fan here, or you can be a realist, or you can be. I mean, maybe the realist part is Buffalo is going to have a strong showing, but.
Well, yeah, I mean, so listen, man, I was thinking about that earlier tonight. I figured you might ask me that tonight. But first and foremost, actually, before I dive into that, I did just kind of want to touch on Cousins. We haven't talked about him much, but I mean, Cousins, first round pick a couple years ago. We are really excited about him in Buffalo. And I mean, he's been solid this year. I think he has 5 points so far throughout the season. Actually, I saw something on Twitter earlier tonight. He's been one of the best players at, controlled zone entries, taking the puck into the zone. I mean, we know how important that is. You're able to carry the puck into the zone with
Yep.
possession, and that gives you the opportunity to then make that next pass to kind of start the chain link to what could be a high danger scoring chance or whatnot. So Cousins has been good. And you want to talk about another player to watch. Obviously, I had mentioned Tage, but Dylan being a young player and being somebody who has the potential to be, in my mind, I think a solid 2C. Can he be a 1C? I don't know. He definitely works hard. You can tell from his interviews, the way he carries himself as a kid. He seems like a good leader. But so I kind of wanted to drop that Dylan Cousins promo in there. But coming to the game Friday night, listen, I mean, I think if I had to guess, I would say it would be like a 1-goal Oilers victory. I'm looking at either 4-3 or 3-2, something like that, a hard-fought game.
Yeah.
I talked about how Granato can control the line matchups at home a little bit better than on the road. I think that plays into the Sabres' advantage. But, I mean, you look at the way Edmonton's rolling, and, yeah, they stumbled up a little bit the past couple games. But what are they on the season? They're 9-2 right now, sitting at 9-2. So, when you have that firepower in the lineup, as we talked about, I think that'll be enough to get them past Buffalo.
Yeah. Yeah, I think Edmonton matches up nicely against Buffalo. Just looking down the lineup. But, I think I'll tell you this, though. There's some good news for you if you like Cousins and you like where he's going. He's probably guaranteed a point because he's playing on a line with Kajula. And it's a well-known fact that ex-Oilers always either score or get a point against the Oilers. And, so it's guaranteed Cousins will probably get an assist or a goal. You mark my words, it'll happen.
Friday night, man. I'm looking forward to it. I might have to throw a little bit of money on that.
Yeah, do a prop bet. That's right. Yeah, well, hey, I appreciate you coming on the show. Really enjoyed having you. I'll have you back again, maybe when the Sabres go to Edmonton. I think that'd be great. And
hey, man, listen, Mike. No, I appreciate you having me on, and definitely would be willing to come back on. And I'll say, I was telling Mike earlier, I'm from New Jersey, so when the Oilers come to New Jersey on December 31st, I'm planning on going out, and I got to see McDavid again in person, man. He's special,
he's fun to watch. There's no doubt. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, you have a great night and enjoy. Hey, thanks so much.
Thanks, Mike.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, Mike. Have a good night, man.
You too. Bye-bye. Hey, that was Joe Cappucci, and we're talking a little bit of Buffalo Sabres. I've got coming up right away. I've got Mr. Dash in the Park is going to join me right away, and we're going to get him on and talk a little bit of Oilers and the way the road trip went. I think tonight was a tough start for the Oilers. So we're going to talk with Dash and talk about the upcoming games. We got Boston up next, and then of course Buffalo, as we just talked with Joe, and we'll talk about that. All right, sir. Oh, wrong.
Now get ready to.
I keep doing that. I keep doing the title screen when I got new guests. Welcome, Dash. How you doing?
You promised me fireworks and pyro, not just replaying the intro in behind me there.
I know. I keep doing that. It's pissing me off.
Michael Hebert, my handsome Haligonian Hulk. How are you tonight, buddy?
That's right. I'm doing all right. Yeah, yourself?
Yeah, it's been a good night. Other than being let down a little bit, I would say that was like watching paint dry for the first 40 minutes of that game.
Yeah, you know what? Well, I wouldn't say it was like watching paint dry. I loved the way Detroit was playing. Like that's the kind of hockey. Like remember like the '90s Oilers, right? Like they're so like some of those teams that were fast. They weren't unbelievably great teams, but they were. They were always kind of a menace. These were the kind of games those teams won, right? They were fun to watch and Detroit came out flying. Like they were, fast. They were doing things. But on the same note, I thought Edmonton came out flat. Like that's back to back now. And you could blame Koskinen for a little bit in that in the Rangers game. I didn't think he was, terribly solid. Not that he's been a good, warrior for Edmonton, but Skinner tonight, with the exception of that third goal, really kind of kept the Oilers in through 2 periods, right? Like, it's disappointing they come out
No
that
doubt.
flat.
Yeah, tough to blame Skinner other than that gaff, I guess.
Yeah,
only
which
needs to
ended
get
up being the
35
game
saves,
winner, which sucks.
which
but-
is unfortunate,
Yeah.
right? That's whatever,
Yeah.
bad luck or whatever. Maybe it's not, but 35 saves and a 921 save percentage. I think he gave him every chance to win, other than that mistake. And he fanned on the puck. Maybe Tippett makes a rule now that Smith's the only goalie that's allowed to play the puck. I don't know.
Well,
That's
I mean, yeah, Smith
a couple of goalies.
Smith has fanned on his fair share as well.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
That's true. That's
I
true.
actually thought, and when you get a young goalie like Skinner in the net, anytime they leave their net, I honestly get scared a little bit, right? Like, they're not all going to be Mike Smiths off the start. He did a lead pass on the power play. Skinner did. All the way up the ice. I thought other than one gaff, I thought he played the puck really well. And I can't remember who it was that said, maybe it was Jack on the broadcast that said, the early talk about Skinner was that he looked more mature, like an NHL goalie. Yeah. And I thought he did. Like, I thought, he was playing the angles well. You don't have to be flashy. You just, if you can play the angles well, and especially against a team like Detroit, you're going to come out with typically a win. It's too bad they couldn't get him a win tonight.
Yeah, I thought Skinner looked calm in the net. His movement was efficient. He didn't really overplay anything and panic on too much. Really, he didn't even panic when he blundered the puck. He just fanned on it, and he caught 20% of the puck. Or, in pool terms, he didn't put any chalk on his cue and gaffed it a little bit. And Larkin took advantage. Right, the worst feeling I had that whole game is that reminded me of 06, Michael. That gave me shivers of back to. Anyways, let's not talk about that. Yeah, I think the Oilers probably didn't give Detroit speed enough respect in the first period. I think that and a combination of coming out definitely flat. I would say that's an understatement, to be honest. They played a really reactive game. There wasn't a lot of proactivity there. I felt they were kind of just waiting for things to come to them and happen. A lack of intention for sure. And I caught up with them. I thought, you said that's 2 in a row. I thought, they've had a few slow starts this season, to be honest. I remember being on the couch at one point in time in the season. I think it was after the Arizona first period. They'd had a bad start against Calgary, a bad start against the Ducks, and a bad start against Arizona. And, they outscored their mistakes there. And we can't expect them to go 9-1 in every 10 games this year, So I think, we ran into it.
We're allowed to want it, though.
Yeah, well, that's a team we should be. We should want that, Michael. You're right. But, I think Blashill had them really well prepared too, to be honest. Is that the first game that you saw the power play look flat? That was the first game where they're kind of standing around.
Yeah,
and maybe it was part of their lack of intention, but I just thought they were well defended.
Played really well, though, too. I wouldn't. For sure. I mean, even if that's a flat power play, I'll take that over anybody else's. Other
than it being 0-2, but yeah, for sure.
They had some good chances. Nemesnikov came in and did his job, right? Like, he played really well, and it's. I mean, he wasn't really tested through 2, but when they did decide, and this is what, I hesitate to say it, but scares me a little bit about the Oilers. So we've seen this now twice. They're a team that can do this. I mean, you've played hockey. I've played hockey. You've got games where you go out there and you kind of dipsy doodle around the ice for the first 40, and then you get a little bit mad. Maybe somebody, it gives you the stinky palm or something, and then you go out and you score 3, or because you're a little bit ticked off. Whereas, you're allowed to I
usually get the stinky palm and then get thrown out for a stupid penalty.
Well,
there you score go. 3 after, but
yeah, but the thing is, typically you're allowed to have one or so games, like you said. You can't expect to go 9-1 every 10 games. But when it becomes a thing, right, where you got to wait till that moment where they get mad, then you got a problem. Look, I hate to say it, but the reason the Calgary Flames are doing so well right now is they're coming out mad every night, and that's the Sutter style, right?
Sure.
I don't think that right now the Oilers are doing that. I don't think they're having to because they're so good. They're so damn good, right? Like that they, just like you and I watching the game, they're sitting back and saying, "Yeah, we got this," right? But you're not going to get it every game. Tonight's a prime example. You see, you're going to get a couple of bad bounces too. Like Hyman hit the post, in the last, I think, 5 minutes. And then Puljujarvi missed that.
With 90 seconds left there. Oh, man, I jumped out of my chair.
And
they had a couple good chances at the end there, really.
Yeah. Like they could have easily came back. And I thought they were going to. I think you probably did. I think every Oilers fan probably did. I think
after last game.
Yeah. And frankly, I suspect the guys on the Detroit bench thought they were going to as well, right? But they held.
Maybe Draisaitl forgot to skate by their bench and say, "Here it comes tonight."
That's right. Yeah. I heard about that. That's
calling his shots.
Yeah, he was held off the score sheet tonight.
And -2. Yeah, and didn't get a shot. No shots on net. That says a lot about Dry. Connor and Draisaitl combined for 2 shots on net. In my opinion, I think Blashill has done his job, man. They didn't look overly flat. McDavid was buzzing around out there, but just statistically didn't get it done. I think the Oilers did a couple of Oiler type things tonight. They played down to another team's level, which is something that they've done in the past historically from time to time. And they let Sam Gagner on the score sheet.
Yeah, well, it's expected.
As you just talked with your last guest.
Yeah.
It's a guarantee.
Yeah, it's a guarantee. Cousins will get a point just because he's on a line with Kajula. It is a guarantee. It's sort of sad, but Cassian, I didn't hear. I think he's day-to-day, lower body, and maybe expected back for the Boston game. Does he make that big of a difference? I think I think in a game like this, right? Like you want all your guys playing. You want that Fogle line. Started out well. I think they're going through a bit of a slump. I really like Fogle. Like I'm a huge fan. Even tonight, they put him out for the final 5. I think like he was out there in key situations. Clearly, they're starting to get a feel for him. I wouldn't be surprised if at various points during the year we see him on the second line or even playing. If Puljujarvi or somebody goes on a bit of a slump, you might even see him bumped up to the first line for a little bit. He's kind of
watch your mouth. That's the Bison kid.
Yeah, no, you know what? I absolutely like. I love the way he's playing. I doubt very much we'll see him, but I just feel like you just don't know what you're getting with this coaching staff, right? Like night after night. Yeah. Like initially, Draisaitl and McDavid was going to be a home game thing, and then they came out playing, top line. And I didn't like it from the start. I thought, you run 2 lines on the road at the very least. I can accept the home game thing, right? Like you get your matchups, but
matchup wise,
but. I say I can accept it. I still don't like it. I think you play Draisaitl, Nuge, and Yamamoto, play them to the ground, right? Like Yamamoto's starting to get flying, and then the night after the night after his second goal or whatever, you go back to
going 2-2.
Yeah, like to me, right? Like why work that anyway? I'm just not I'm not a Tippett fan. Are you a Tippett fan? I can't remember.
We've been on that same train, I think. I think he's been outcoached in the postseason in a couple of playoffs now, especially against Chicago. And I think that even really was more of a thorn on my side because that's the youngest coach in the NHL at the point in time. And I think maybe this is another one of those, like, it's hard to blame Tippett tonight because his team didn't show up, man.
Yeah, no, I agree. Like but part of coaching is getting a team ready for
getting them going. Yeah. No, you're right. Yeah. And to answer your question on whether Cassian makes that big of a difference, I think he does. And, he's been inconsistent. So, obviously, the Cassian that shows up is certainly beneficial when he's there. He's not overly harmful when he's not showing up, other than maybe a little knock on the plus minus. But what that allows us to do is roll those 3 lines, man. And when we can, keep that top six and roll 3 lines, that's what we need on the road.
Cassian's a great third liner, right?
For sure. Yeah. He's and if you got a spot duty him on second or first, you can. To your point on Yamo, he's a streaky scorer in the first place. He's got 2 goals in 2 games. Maybe you try him up on the top line. And I don't know. And then to your point on Tippett, I think this is going to force Tippett to do Tippett things. Like the blender's coming, buddy. If Cass can't play in Boston, he's going to be either looking for a way to get 3 lines going, which is hard when you're missing a key player of your top 9, or he's going to jam those 2 together. And, he said it would be a home game thing, but we had to know it was going to be a home game or when you need a goal behind in a game thing,
Yeah.
We're going to see those 2 together a lot, no matter what.
Hey, does the Archibald thing
it certainly doesn't hurt that goaltending is like a literal brick wall down south.
Does the Archibald loss come into play now?
Yeah,
not having Archibald there. I mean, this was kind of what we were worried about. You know what I love though?
McLeod looked scared. He went out of his way to not hit people.
Yeah, he's he needs to get back in. I mean, let's be fair to him for a game right back. Mm-hmm. He didn't play a lot of minutes, but that kid's got wheels, right? Like there's times where I mistake him for McDavid until he touches the puck.
He's on the perimeter. He reminds me of Jesse.
That was the knock on him when he was a prospect, was that he was a perimeter player. And in fact, I said that on our prospect show. By the way, just a little update: Sharks now beating the Flames 4-1.
Booyah!
Yeah, that's good. I said that on the prospect show, and I had a couple of McLeod fans. Where was he at? He was in the O. Who was he playing for out there? Jeez, damn it, I can't remember. I got Guelph in my head, but that's not who it was. Maybe. Yeah, I'll have to look it up. Anyway, man, I had some people come after me for that. They were like, "No, he's not." He goes in, and sure enough, it's like, these are the types of things that. But it'll be good to see him come back for a couple games.
Yeah, that's his 13th game in the NHL. It's tough to expect too much from a guy in that position. That's for sure.
Yeah, it's official. Flames lost tonight, 4-1.
That's a wrap.
That's a wrap.
Suck it, Flames.
That's all good now. Life's good now.
Mississauga Steelheads for
Mississauga. That's right. I knew. Yeah. Anyway, how good does it feel to be 11 games into the season and really just now having something to really complain about?
Yeah.
I love this. Like I look, we've had seasons where the first 11 games, that's all we did is talk about, man, we miss Archibald, or, oh man, Tippett's, an idiot for doing this. Look, I've questioned some of what Tippett's done in a win situation. And, but look, I feel good. I ask you though, like, this is kind of a scary road trip for us, right? I mean, are we the team that we think, the Oilers are, like us fans think the Oilers are, or are we going to come back licking our wounds? What's your thoughts on that?
Well, we got to get used to the fact that this is reality, and there's going to be more games like this in the next 70 than there is like we saw in the first 10. Yeah. I mean, 2 power play chances, 0 for 2 on special teams is the norm in the NHL, not going 2 for 4. So, I think that's going to catch up with you eventually. I said,
I still think they're going to be in that 40% mark at the end of the season. Like I
think that's fair.
Which is ridiculous. But they'll
slow starts happen, right? And I think there was the 3 I mentioned. Philly was a bit of a slow start. The Rangers was a slow start. Now here's another one tonight. So, that's 5 slow starts in 11 games, and that's going to catch up with you over time as well. So part of me thinks they're looking ahead to Boston, to be honest, bud.
Yeah, no, well, but I mean, this is not an easy road trip, right? Other than Buffalo, you got Buffalo though at the end of a back-to-back, right? And then you're playing in St. Louis and Winnipeg. This is probably the hardest part of our season so far. I think, I think this is kind of a, one of those things where next Tuesday we could be having a conversation and it would be, damn it, like this was a killer for us, right? Or we're high-fiving each other virtually, of course, and loving this team. I think we're gonna love this team. Like, I think at the end of this road trip, where if we can come out, obviously we started with a loss, but if we can win 3 of the next 4, right, even 2 of the next 4, I'd be happy. But I think they can win 3 of the next 4, which would be 3 out of a 5 road trip. I think Buffalo they should be able to beat, and they always, they usually play a good game against Winnipeg. There's the Canadian rivalry there, and St. Louis will be a tough one, and Boston will be a tough one.
Yeah.
But I'm looking forward to the Boston game, right? Like that's that's a team that's always tough to play against, and some good players, obviously, and fun to watch. And what's your thoughts on the D so far? I mean, you were a big Duncan Keith detractor. You were, very upset. Like, I think most nights he's not that noticeable. So, which is good.
Right? Which is a good thing.
Yeah.
I think he plays well below the hash marks, and like in his own end when the puck he's good at breaking up the cycle. He's a little jitterbug down low. I didn't realize how quick he would be that way. His overall speed it's not great though. No. I still don't think he's an awesome skater, and maybe it's just his edge work or something, but he still has a tough time making decisions, closing gaps. To your point, they have been for the most part unnoticeable, and I think they're both better puck movers than I expected. Cece's like a bear out there. He's a huge man. I didn't realize, how much control he can put into breaking up the cycle, and so that's been good to watch. They've acted like veteran defensemen. That said, the first 5 games of the year, we played teams that didn't make the playoffs. We got 3 backup goalies in the next few games, and we didn't luck into a 9-1 start. But at the same time, there was a little bit of luck involved. And to me, I don't think. You know what? I'd love to answer this question again at the end of this road trip, because to me, they haven't really seen that wave of offense come at them yet. Philly was a test, I think, for sure, and we lost that game. Keith and Cece are going to have to play against teams like the Oilers that have a second and third line that can play as well as their first line some nights. Vegas might have had that if they didn't have the injuries in Stone and Pacioretty, and that would have been a little tougher as well if they weren't relying on Marchessault for their scoring that night. Yeah. But I think the biggest test might be the Jets. That top 9 is filthy. And they better come out with some sort of redemption in mind. They didn't forget about the playoffs. If they're going to get fired up for any of these games on the road trip, it better be the Jets. So, D to date, yep, not bad. The test is coming, though. But they've done what they should have done. And I can't complain about that.
Yeah, no, and they have. In fact, I've got, in my mind, we've got more out of them than we expected, right? Like they haven't been, I think in some cases goaltending, has let us down on key moments. I'm not going to blame anything on Koskinen because I think he's come in as a backup and done reasonably well. But I've got zero trust in him, right? And the Rangers game is exactly why, right? Like he just. He did everything to lose that game for the Oilers, and thankfully, we're blessed with Connor, and he did everything to win that game for us.
Yeah.
But I tell you, like, that's that, and that was, it was going to be defense or goaltending, right? Everybody knew that this year. Goaltending,
and at times it's going to be both, and It'll have its ups and downs. Imagine if that was Koskinen in there tonight and he gave up that pizza for the third goal.
Oh, yeah, we'd roast him.
The fans would have him ran out of town, right? But
Yeah.
it's a kid and it's Skinner and it's his second game in the NHL, and and Skinner did play, I thought, pretty good for most of that game. So
No, I didn't hear. Is Mike Smith on the road trip?
yeah,
He
he
is,
did take the road trip, but they
Yeah.
weren't sure if he'd get into games.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, it was Tippett sure took his time putting Skinner in. I think it's but it's fine. He showed well. I just for one of the few games of the season, he didn't get the run support, right? Like yeah.
I don't disagree with Skinner's lack of starts. Other than him, I'd have stuck him in that Coyotes game for the back-to-back.
Yeah, I figured that just based on last year, right? Like Tippett seemed, Tippett's got, if you don't get his trust, you're not getting in, right? Like he, and I hate to go off on Tippett, but to me, sometimes that's to the detriment of the lineup, right? We saw that with Bouchard last year. Let's talk a bit about Bouchard because he's been playing up with Nurse. He's not. It's not coming. It's not going anywhere offensively, though, right? Like I think we were expecting, a lot out of this guy from an offensive standpoint. I don't think that. I guess 6 points is not terrible, but we expected more goals from him. We expected more from Nurse as well. You think that's a problem at all for this team?
I think those guys are playing the tough minutes.
Yeah.
I think maybe if Bouchard was getting the same amount of ice time on a third pairing, he's going to have a little bit more production. That said, 7 points isn't.
No,
terrible.
It's not bad. Yeah. Well, I guess he got a point tonight. Yeah. Sorry, I didn't realize he got one tonight.
Yeah, and so what I like about Bouchard's game is he's getting his time on the ice still, but really doing well on the penalty kill. I think that's been underrated.
I think his defensive game is the highlight, right? Like, we all thought it was going to be. I might get run down for saying this, but he's replaced Bear, I think, really well. Right, like he actually plays a defensive game lot like Bear played defensively.
Yeah, he's playing a bearish game. Yeah, for sure. Well said.
Like that.
Because Barry and Nurse were a bit of a
right? Yeah.
But Bear stabled it. Yeah, and I would say Bouchard he fought the puck a lot tonight. Tonight might have been his worst game, to be honest. But hey, we've got to expect that out of a 21-year-old defenseman, and he's outplayed his expectations by a long shot this year, in my opinion. So to be able to take top pairing minutes at his age is a accomplishment all in itself. And 7 points, I know it's only one goal, but 7 points in 11 games when you're playing mostly 5-on-5 and 20% of your ice time is penalty kill. I'd say that's a big win on his part. He's doing his job.
We got some guy, Mike Dursa, commenting on YouTube. On YouTube, some guy.
Never heard of him.
Nope. No, don't know. He said Skinner played well. Just one mistake. He wasn't even far out of his net. Looked to me like they underestimated their opponent. Fair statement.
Yeah.
No shots for Draisaitl is a big reason they went 0-4 on the power play. Absolutely.
I mean, the shots were 26-13. At the time, Skinner coughed that up. Even at that point in time, there was still 18 Oilers that were playing worse than Skinner.
Well, it was 11 or 9 minutes into the second period before they got their first shot.
Wow.
Yeah.
Is that right, eh? I missed that. Jeez.
Yeah, it was awful, right? Like that's, you can't, you just can't come out flat like that, right? Like that's, you got to be prepped. I think, Mike's right. They underestimated their opponent. And I think when you got a team like this, that's going to happen, right? Like when you got a team that can outscore, you can come off this Rangers win, like you think you're on top of the world. You can outscore everybody, or the Oilers of old, right? That kind of, feeling. My biggest concern is I hope this is, Tippett goes in and has the talk and cuts this off right then and now. In fact, maybe coming in against a team from Boston, like a team like Boston, is a great follow-up to playing a team like Detroit.
Good call.
Right? Like, you just, you don't want to see these games anymore where they come out flat and then they know as a team, like, their expectation, even going 0-4 on the power play, might have been a good learning experience for them, right?
Yeah, we're definitely built to be the type of team. Right.
Yeah.
No, for sure. And I mean, we're built to be the type of team to get ahead. If we get up early on a team, then we're making the game a track meet, or we make them forced into mistakes, in which case we get power plays and launch power play mania.
Hey, how about Puljujarvi scoring like the transition goal, right? Like the meaningful goal again. I mean, that's and you see him, yell, "Let's go!" Right? Because he's, like he's pumped, he's ready. Like, I love that. Is there a Finnish player you can remember that might have done that once in a while? Like
big play, Yessa?
Yeah.
How much did he look like Curry shooting off his back foot?
Yeah.
Like that was unreal, man. And he pulled away from Sider and
he's
Raymond.
A guy like his size, and Lemieux was the same. Lemieux was huge. They don't look like they're skating as fast as they
reminds me of Yager.
So big, right? Even Yager, right? Like they're so big. You don't really realize how fast they are, other than they're pulling away from everybody because they got those big strides.
They're lumbering along. He's like a condor. He's, like he's just a big wingspan, and he swoops through back. Whoa. And man, and pulling away, he gapped out there towards that breakaway. Like, that's showing some excellent speed. Nobody has more fun playing hockey than Yessa. So I don't know. Easy guy to get behind. And man, if he can be that emotional spark plug like he has in the last 2 games, look out.
And embracing the Bison King,
Halloween costume was epic. Hey?
That's outstanding. It's hard not to love the guy. All right, well, we're gonna call it a night here right away. I'm gonna give you the last word, as I always do. But first, we've got what's the schedule? Is Boston, Buffalo, St. Louis, then Winnipeg. So we got 4 more on this road trip. I'm gonna say we're gonna go 3 and 4. I'm gonna say back-to-back wins in Boston and Buffalo, and then I'm gonna say St. Louis a loss and Winnipeg a win. So a 3 of 4, which will make it a 3 of 5 road trip, which I think is successful. Your thoughts, and when you're ready, just say good night to everybody, and we'll call it a night.
3 and 5. Yeah, 3 out of 5. That's I like it too. I'm not sure we'll get by Boston tomorrow. Hopefully tonight was the slap in the face we needed to go up against a team like that. Hopefully we learn from the mistakes of what a slow start can do. Because if you do it against a team like the Bruins, you're not coming back like we did against the Rangers and the Red Wings. So that team will just stomp you out. As might the Blues, as might the Jets. So our test is coming. If we can get out of it the way you just predicted, I think I'm going to call that a success. So I'm going to just agree with you for crappy radio. Last words, congratulations to one of my favorite players of all time, Sam Gagner, for his 900th game tonight. An assist plus two hits, and got a point against the Oilers. Like, we could have better life savings he would have. So congratulations to Sam. Thanks for having me on the show, and go Oilers go. Thanks for tuning in, everyone.
Oilers Live.